All right, this video is going to be a little bit out of character for me. I'm going to talk about differentials. Players you can pick that should, if they perform, shoot you up the leaderboard. So I'm going to go through 3 positions and a few differentials in each. And I'm going to start off with the defenses. Now, if you're picking a differential, right, you don't want to just pick a low-owned player for the sake of it, right? You want to pick a low-owned player that actually has some data and some statistics, I guess, behind them to prove that they're not only obviously low-owned, but also likely to score you some points. So when looking at defenses, I wanted to take a look at the best defenses for goals conceded to start off with. And one team that's pointed out to me, or standing out to me, I guess, was Nottingham Forest. Only conceded 6 goals in the league this season, and they're certainly in the top half for expected goals against as well. So just bear that in mind a second. Next thing I wanted to look at was a list of the most attacking defenders in the league so far this season for expected goal involvement. So when picking defenders in FPL, you need to be obviously picking ones from defenses that are decent for goals conceded, but also you probably want to pick defenders that are decent from an attacking perspective as well. A few players on this list that kind of stand out to me: Leif Davis of Ipswich, Aït-Nouri of Wolves, you've got Sugawara there of Southampton, Romero of Tottenham, Guardiola, Milenkovic of Nottingham Forest. You know, so think about. I'm going to name a couple in a second, but from your perspective as well, you know, if there are defenders that appear on this list that are low ownership you like, or defenders with low ownership that you like on this list, those are the kind of differential defenders you want to be going for. My first pick is one that's probably been spoken about by quite a few content creators already. I haven't really watched a lot of FPL content this international break because I've been full bore on a bit of work and doing my own YouTube channel. So I haven't seen how many have spoken about Aït-Nouri, but I can kind of predict they probably have. Now, the guy is basically playing as a winger for Wolves, and we saw that last season as well. Admittedly, if we just go back, I think Wolves have conceded the most goals in the league so far this season. It's not actually all that close. But their fixtures do turn coming up, right? And also, against Brentford, he conceded 5, not 6 goals. He still scored 9 points, despite his team conceding 5 goals, because he is just so good from an attacking perspective. And I would say, yes, they've conceded the most goals in the league so far this season. And I would say Brentford in particular is a fixture that would kind of concern me about their defence. But I would say they've definitely had a difficult start to the season in terms of fixtures. I actually think Wolves have had the toughest run to start the season off of any team in the Premier League. So just bear that in mind. Yes, they've been pretty poor defensively so far. Well, the worst team in the league defensively. But I do expect that to improve somewhat. And also, just with how attacking it is, Aït-Nouri is still going to get you points even if his team concede goals. The next player I kind of pointed him out. Nottingham Forest being the 3rd best team. I think it was 3rd. Let's just go back. Yeah, 3rd best team in the league for goals conceded. And Milenkovic actually coming up on the most attacking defenders list there. 1.21 expected goal involvement so far this season. I think he's a really nice option. 4.5 million, 0.4% ownership for Nottingham Forest at the moment. Crystal Palace, Leicester and West Ham coming up. Like, that's a decent set of 3 fixtures. And with Forest being the 3rd best defence in the league for goals conceded so far, I mean, you've got to think there's some clean sheets coming up in those fixtures, right? And just due to his height and size, he has proven to be a real threat from set pieces. I think that's the whole reason that Nottingham Forest actually bought him. The owner, I can't remember the guy's name, the Nottingham Forest owner, but he clearly saw that they were not so great at defending set pieces last season. They actually bought a massive goalkeeper as well to make up for that. And also Milenkovic in from Fiorentina, I believe he came from. He's 6'5", 6'6", just an absolute beast in the air. I think he played for Serbia during the Euros as well and kind of proved to be an absolute nightmare from set pieces there as well. So, yeah, I mean, Nottingham Forest looking good defensively. Milenkovic looking good from an attacking perspective. He's 4.5 million, only 0.4% ownership. I think he could be a nice differential for you. I just thought I'd look at a little points projection as well. So I've selected Aït-Nouri and Milenkovic as my favourite differential defenders, but there are also some others on this list that, you know, potentially quite like the look of as well. Aït-Nouri is actually, this is just, so what I've done here is basically picked all defenders 4.5 million in below and ranked them, well, 5 million actually in below, and ranked them by expected points. Interestingly, Aït-Nouri comes out on top just because of how good he's been from an attacking perspective. don't actually see Milenkovic on this list, which quite surprises me, to be honest. But you do see Alex Moreno of Forest on there, who could be an option. Ayer and Collins of Brentford are interesting. Brentford have got a really good fixture run coming up. I think Collins appears on the best attacking defenders list. Yeah, 1 goal, 3 assists for him so far this season. So he's on that list. So he could be another differential option. I just personally, I don't think his attacking output is going to be as consistent across the whole season. And I really haven't seen enough from Brentford defensively so far yet. You know, their fixtures have gotten a bit easier and they still are struggling to keep clean sheets. Leif Davis of Ipswich could be a good option as well. He, again, is amongst the top defenders for expected goal involvement. Just go back to it. He's second place on this list. So he could also be a decent differential as well. Didn't specifically make a slide about him, but I think he could be a good option too. So, yeah, hopefully everything I've gone through there gives you a good idea of some good pickable differential defenders. Next up then, I wanted to look at midfielders, and I've done it in a similar way to how I presented the defenders. So here we've got the best midfielders in the league so far this season for expected goal involvement. And, well, I'm not going to go through the list because I'm going to pick 2 examples that I really like from it. But if there are any, you know, low-owned players from this list you like the look of, I'd suggest they're going to be pretty good differentials, right? 2 players that immediately stood out for me. They obviously both play for Tottenham, but it was Maddison and Brennan Johnson. The 2 players have put up pretty decent numbers so far this season. 0.81 expected returns per 90 or expected goal involvements per 90 for Maddison. If you look there, comparing Maddison to Salah, he's actually got more expected goal involvements per 90 than Mo Salah does. So he's performing at a really high level. And also, the next 3 fixtures for Spurs, and obviously both of these players are really good. West Ham, Crystal Palace, and Aston Villa, who have only kept 1 Premier League clean sheet, I think, in the last year. Although they have kept back-to-back clean sheets against Man United and Bayern Munich. But I think all 3 of those fixtures, you know, you could conceive that definitely Spurs score goals, right? So Maddison is a good option. And then for basically $1 million cheaper, you could also go for Brennan Johnson. I think Maddison is probably that little bit more nailed than Brennan Johnson and probably that little bit more dangerous in terms of an attacking returns perspective. But Brennan Johnson has also put up some really good numbers this season. 5 goals from 6 starts so far, 0.62 expected returns per 90 is very respectable. And he also appears towards the bottom, but admittedly, but on this list of, you know, the best midfielders for expected goal involvements. Both of them are around 5% ownership, which for me classes as a differential. So Brennan Johnson or Maddison, depending on who you can afford, how your budget kind of works in your team, I think both of these guys are really good differential picks. I also wanted to chuck in a pretty rogue shout. I've put him in my thumbnail as well, and that's Harvey Barnes. He's looking like a regular starter for Newcastle now, playing on the left wing. I think just a note about Isak being out, it does mean that Gordon is the penalty taker for Newcastle, but I do think it probably puts a bit more goal-scoring responsibility on the likes of Harvey Barnes and Gordon. So I think naturally, without their main number 9 being in the team, I don't think they don't actually have a striker in their team at the moment. So naturally, that's going to have, you know, more goal-scoring responsibility or assisting responsibility placed on Barnes and Gordon. Now, Newcastle definitely haven't had the best start to the season, but Barnes has still been returned. He's got 4 returns from the 4 starts that he's made so far this season. The one thing that would worry me about him, which is why I kind of put him second on this list to Maddison and Johnson, is his injury record over his career. He tends to just get injured basically every season consistently. So just one thing to bear in mind, but he is a decent differential option. In terms of forwards, I would say it was actually quite hard for me to pick out some real differentials because, well, we've got an idea now of who the best forwards in the league are, and there's just a smaller pool of forwards to pick from than there are midfielders and defenders. So naturally, finding like a hidden gem in this position is going to be really difficult. And also, most Premier League teams, right, they play with 1 striker. Most of them do anyway, 1 or 2. So that naturally means there's just going to be less of them available to pick from than midfielders and defenders. But the 1 striker, the 1 forward I really like the look of is Raul Jimenez, 5.6 million. It looks like he's definitely going on a bit of a resurgence, I would say, after his horrible, I think he broke his skull, didn't he, back when playing for Wolves. And for the couple of seasons after that, he never looked the same player, and it obviously led to him leaving Wolves and going to Fulham. But now he seems to be that first choice Fulham number 9 over Muniz, who obviously put up ridiculous numbers last season, but Jimenez has displaced him in the team. He's on penalties. We've seen that. He's taken a penalty now for Fulham. And he's got some really good upcoming fixtures, I would say. Aston Villa, Everton and Brentford are definitely not the best defences in the league. I just spoke about Aston Villa when, I think, going through Maddison or another player. They're basically saying that Yes, you know, they've kept 2 clean sheets on the bounce against Bayern Munich and Man United, but that Man United clean sheet, I think, was their first in the Premier League in like a whole year. So, you know, they're not, definitely can't say they're the best defensively. And then Everton and Brentford are shipping goals for fun as well. The numbers he's put up are fantastic. So 0.81 expected returns per 90. Hopefully I'm going to go back to the right graphic. That's Milenkovic. Yeah, 0.81 expected returns per 90 is better than Mo Salah, right? And he is a 5.6 million forward. So just bear that in mind. I think Raul Jimenez could be a really nice differential. And again, similar to what I did with the defenders, I thought it would be worth looking at, these are the top sort of cheap strikers for the next 5 game weeks. And Raul Jimenez is by far the number one. He's ahead of Calvert-Lewin, ahead of Vardy, Evan Nilsson, Delap, Welbeck, Strand Larsen, all of those players he is ahead of. And he's only 5.6% owned. So if you're looking for a cheap differential striker that could get you ahead of the pack, look no further than Raul Jimenez. All right, and that's the end of the video. I hope you enjoyed it and found it useful. If you did, please leave me a like rating. Let me know in the comments as well what you think of some of my opinions on those players there. I always say this, but I don't mind people putting different opinions to mine in the comments. Just be polite about it. That's all I ask. Yeah, a lot of these players are obviously low owned, but I also think my favourite kind of differentials to pick are ones that are kind of tried and trusted and have a proven track record. And I think most of these players that I've spoken about, not just this season, but in seasons gone by, have proven to be good point scorers, with the exception of maybe Milenkovic, because he's just new to the Premier League this season, right? But Forest are statistically one of the best defences. So, you know, not only do I think I've gone for some low-owned players, but I think I've backed them up with stats and data. But again, if you disagree, let me know in the comments. If you like this video and want to see more from me, you can subscribe to the Golden Goal channel, which should be just there on your screen where I pointed. Thank you very much for watching, and I will catch you in my next video.